Hi, welcome to Physionic, where we learn the body from the macro to the micro. If that's something you think you'd be interested in, then consider subscribing. So today's video is going to be dedicated to those lifters out there, especially beginner lifters that are first starting their lifting journey. If that is to build muscle, build strength, whatever, whatever it might be, this video is for you. So we're going to be covering three extremely common mistakes that I've seen and that I have certainly done myself when I first started as well. Okay, so the first one is going to the gym too much, being in the gym too much. This is a massive problem when it comes to people that are really enthusiastic, and there are a wide variety of problems with why you should not be in the gym for as long as you possibly can. If you are in the gym as long as an advanced lifter who's been lifting for, I don't know, 5 years or so and quality lifting experience, then you are in the gym for far too long. While I completely support people working with a workout partner, especially somebody who's more experienced, if you're doing the exact same stuff that they are, then you are shooting yourself in the foot. The reason for that is because your body, when you're lifting weights, especially in those first 2 to 4 weeks, all you're doing is recruiting a bunch of neural patterns. So you're essentially making yourself more efficient at lifting weights. But not only that, you're also developing a lot of that restructuring of the musculature. So it's not necessarily growth that's occurring. And what people do is they get really enthusiastic, they go in the gym for 2.5 hours, 3 hours, whatever it might be, 4, 5, 6 times a week, and they crush themselves, get so sore, and they think that they're getting some sort of progress out of it. They're not. It's completely counterintuitive. You want to create the least amount of muscular damage while still progressing in weightlifting. So a perfect example would be something like going to the gym 2 to 3 times in the week, working out for 45 minutes. I mean 30 minutes to 45 minutes, something really light, 3 to 5 sets on major muscle groups. That's it. And then just walk out. You're gonna walk out and you're gonna feel like you barely did anything. That's how much. You're gonna be so enthusiastic, you're gonna go in there, be so pumped to do it, then 30 minutes, 45 minutes later, you're gonna feel like, wow, I feel like I didn't do anything. But don't let that deceive you. You actually did. And you'll see that in the coming months as the weight continues to progress upwards. The second mistake is not focusing on form. Now, as a beginner, it's incredibly important for 2 reasons. One of them is something that's actually generalizable to really everybody. So focusing on form will allow you to avoid injuries. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Now, the second reason, which is far more specific to beginners, is those first 2 to 4 weeks especially are incredibly important because you're developing better neural patterns, and you want to build those neural patterns to a point where your form is going to constantly be dictated by that neural pattern. So it's not necessarily going to be something where you're constantly thinking, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. If you can get out of that mindset over time, let's say 6 months down the road, you become really proficient at lifting a particular weight, a particular way, then you're not gonna have to think about it nearly as much. There is actually also a third benefit, which is actually a pretty major benefit when it comes to having that great form, is if you're trying to go, let's say for squats, you're most likely trying to build your legs. And if you don't go to that full range of motion because you're an ego lifter and you want to lift, let's say 300 pounds, when in actuality you should be lifting like 190 pounds with good form, then you're going to get underdeveloped legs. And it seems a bit counterintuitive because you're thinking, well, if I lift a lot more weight, then won't I necessarily get bigger? And the truth is, no, you won't. Because your glutes, for example, will not be as developed. Your hamstrings won't be as developed. Your calves might not be as developed. And you're only going to be affecting those quads. Not to mention, of course, again, eventually you're going to run into an injury and that's going to set you back. So no matter what, starting from the very beginning, be humble and start from the very beginning and slowly build your way up is the best possible way to go. And again, focus on form. That is the number one priority, with the second priority being to continuously, progressively overload over time. And the third mistake is focusing on isolation work. So isolation exercise, meaning that it will only really work one muscle group, as opposed to compound exercises, which are going to work several different muscle groups. A compound exercise would be like a bench press, an overhead press, a squat, or a deadlift. And I would really say that for those first 6 months, and this is a generalization, but for those first 6 months at least, don't do any isolation work whatsoever. Now, you could certainly argue against that in particular ways, but for a complete beginner, I still think that just being pretty drastic and eliminating all these different exercises that fall under this isolation work, that's going to save you time, it's going to make you far more efficient, and it's going to create a far greater base and foundation to build off of if you just solely 100% do compound exercises. And with that said, those are my 3 mistakes that beginners make. If you found it useful, then consider sharing, subscribing, and commenting below. Especially comment if you have any others that you would keep in mind, especially those of you that are experienced lifters or that have recently gone through those beginner stages. And I hope that I have the pleasure of speaking with you next time. Have a good one. See ya.